My name is Warren Woodward. I am the co-founder and CGO at Upptic. We do all things to help games grow. My background is in user acquisition for games, so I've been doing that for the last decade or so at large gaming publishers like Nexon. About 4 years ago, broke off with my co-founder and we started this team at Upptic where we basically do two things. We provide cross-disciplinary services for teams to do UA, creative, analytics, etc. And then we also have our own software, the Upptic platform, which does a bunch of cool tools to help games grow. One thing that we found a lot within our teams is there was a lot of manual work and we didn't have access to any of the engineering resources. So we'd always be at companies where there's like big engineering teams, but they were always focused on the games. The idea for Upptic was like, hey, let's make this bifurcated company where we have an engineering team, but that engineering team is just making the stuff that helps with user acquisition, helps with creative, that lets us do our mission of growing games profitably. And it's been really fun to have our in-house engineering team building all our dream tools that we could never make when I was at a publisher. But then as we refine these tools, offering them to other teams to use as well. It is a crazy time right now. I'd say this has been one of the biggest fear periods in the gaming industry. There's a few macro factors that have been facilitating this. Obviously, we just have weaker economic conditions in general for tech, for gaming. There's been a huge impact to the advertising ecosystem, particularly for mobile, because of the iOS privacy changes impacting a lot of teams. And there's just been huge shakeups in the industry around trends, technology. For the last couple of years, Web3 was a huge trend. Now AI is a huge trend, and it's just a time of massive change. So we've seen that a lot of teams have really pulled back from performance marketing for this combination of factors. But one really interesting thing we found is it's actually like creating a great opportunity for the games that we work on. We're actually seeing better returns right now than we have any time in years. So one thing that I'm really encouraging teams to do is just because there's a lot of fear and a lot of your competitors or peers may be acting one way, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's reality. And for nimble teams, we're actually finding this is a really great time for performance marketing. The term I keep using is analysis paralysis. We've now been dealing with the impacts of SKAN and the iOS privacy changes for years, but precious little has actually changed. We have a set of tools that Apple has provided us that some teams are leveraging, but more often than not, we see that teams have just not adapted to using these. And they're also pretty subpar even for the teams that have been using them. The approach that our team took, not that this is what works for everyone, is that you can actually kind of work around these limitations if you are creative. Without getting too into the weeds, we built a system that basically uses what I call like dynamic polling. So in every segment of your players, we're looking at the data from the players that agree to be tracked, so still respecting privacy, then using SKAN as a source of truth for the total install count, and then building a bunch of models on top of each other with our software to look and model lifetime value, lifetime returns for all of your players. We're using those signals, the SKAN installs, and then the revenue data from those users that agree to be tracked, so you can still see your estimated returns and compare this across iOS and Android, compare this across all channels, regardless of how they use SKAN. By no means this is the only way to do it. It's just one clever way we found that really works for us. But I would say the takeaway for marketers is you can find ways to work around this. You just have to model and estimate. And if you can, it's actually a really great time to do UA on iOS. One of the things that I've always used as a foundation for growth marketing is there's these three pillars, which are user acquisition, sort of the operational piece, pulling the levers. There is analytics, what are you doing with your data? How are you acting on that? And then there's creative. These are the three pillars of growth that we kind of built Upptic around. And that's how our services team operates. So when we come on board to work on a game, we have those three sub-teams all activate. And then within each of those sub-teams of user acquisition, creative, and data, there's different specialists. It's really expensive to build out an internal growth marketing org. What we position is that, hey, you can, rather than trying to hire 2-3 people and hoping those people can do everything, is that you've got, over a dozen cross-disciplinary experts. So you'll have your UA lead and your creative lead, but then they have a bunch of specialists under them that are like individual channel specialists for UA or individual design animation specialists for creative, or maybe working on UGC for creative, and then a diverse data science and analytics team. This approach is really cost effective for the partners we work with, because then you get all the expertise, all these seasoned people, but you're just using a slice of everyone's time rather than hoping you can hire a couple of unicorns to do everything. If a marketing agency or firm that you're talking to is trying to get you to do paid ads, like run away or at least second guess it. It's not a good starting place. It doesn't mean that there's not a role for this, but we've seen a lot of teams waste money on paid advertising way too early on in the product product's life cycle. First, you have to ask yourself, with the state of my product right now, am I going after Web3 native users or am I going after mainstream gamers? If it's the former, if you're going after Web3 native users, paid advertising is actually a really horrible way to hit them because this subset of community is very skeptical of ads, usually associates them with scams in the crypto space. And we found different types of social proof kind of marketing. So working with influencers in the space as far as community leaders, and then also working directly with other communities to make partnerships, to do co-marketing with them. We found this is really cost effective and a great way to hit that like kind of needle in a haystack of the Web3 natives. Now, when the game is more mature and accessible to mainstream players, this is when you might start using things like traditional attribution, because now you're driving to a game rather than driving general hype or driving to your Discord. And this is when you can activate like paid marketing channels and start using traditional growth marketing playbook. It's 2023, things are crazy. There's layoffs, changes in the ecosystem, changes in technology we're using, and chaos always breeds opportunity. We always get a little excited at Upptic when there's these periods of chaos because we see openings. This is a tactic that you can leverage too as far as mindset of when you see everyone repeating the same things, a lot of fear, a lot of panic, try to just stay calm and think about the opportunities that are created in these times of uncertainty. In some ways, this period reminds me of the beginning of mobile when we had these new platforms, new tactics, new channels. The industry was very slow to adapt. If you are early in times like this, you don't have to be perfect. And this is, again, one of those rare moments where we have those opportunities in big times of change. So don't sleep on it, be thoughtful, try to capitalize on it, and you can actually make the most out of this time.